to his children. John 8:44, ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. Okay? Just like that, just like the children like the father. And the same is with Jesus. 1 John 4:17, herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment, because as he is, so are we in the world. So there it is. 3 different groups of people. Some are from Adam. Some are from Satan. Some are from Jesus. Each one bears a likeness. So if you got people living like the devil, do you really need a course in this? You can't, and the children can't rise higher than their father did. Scriptures say that if any man does not have the Spirit of Christ, none of his. You say, how do we know? That's your business to know. If you get serious enough about it, if you don't know how to tell this, if you get serious enough about it, God will show it to you. If you're not serious enough about it, we don't want you to know. But I will give you a little checklist here. If any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. I'm commenting on the children of Christ being like Christ. Here's a little checklist. Romans 8:2. The law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has made me free. Made me free from the law of sin and death. The law of sin and death is like the spiritual gravitational law. It's what pulls you down. It's what compels a person to sin. The law, it's a principle, a law of sin and death. Before you're in Christ, you had no power over this. You might change your habits and do something outward. You couldn't break loose from this law. Sin and death pulled you down. But when Jesus came, he made you free from the law of sin and death. You're not in dominion under sin. There's nobody in Christ that sins because they have to. They only can sin because they want to. Satan knows that. So all temptation is trying to get you to want to do it. Because if you want to do it, Satan knows you will. Free from the law of sin and death. Now you grow in this. I understand this. We're not teaching that you'll never make a mistake or anything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is to avoid falling into the trap, you got to know this. You have to know the children have been liberated from the law of sin and death. Here's another, Romans 8:4. That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Somebody's leading you. It's either your flesh, your nature. People say, I'm only human. Thank God that's not true. You can say, oh, I am human. But I am not only human. There's a part of me that'll never die. That's Jesus said that. That's in the red print. He that lives and believes in me will never die. That's not human. Here's another word. Romans 8:5. They which are after the flesh, that's Adam, see. They which are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh. That's what they think about. That's what they talk about. They that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Now, I've noticed sometimes visited around different churches and things. Church is real quiet until folks start talking about the world. Then, everybody's going. They that are of the flesh mind the things of the flesh. Here's another little tip. Romans 8:11. If the Spirit of him, if the Spirit of him that raised up Jesus from the dead dwell in you. Dwell means he's staying there, not visiting. Some people are satisfied with a visit from the Spirit. That won't get you in. You got to dwell there. The Spirit of him that raised up Jesus Christ from the dead dwell in you. The Spirit that raised up Christ from the dead the Spirit of him that raised up Christ from the dead shall also quicken, make alive, your mortal body. That's not talking about the resurrection from the dead. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about holiness. If you know the 8th chapter of Romans, you know that. He's talking about living for God. And if the Spirit of Christ dwells in you, the Spirit of Christ will enable you to keep under your body and bring it into subjection and make your body your vassal. Here's another, Romans 8:13. If you live after the flesh, you will die. If you through the Spirit mortify or put to death the deeds of the body, you shall live. What does it mean to mortify the deeds of the body? It means when you're tempted to sin, read my lips now, you say, no. And the grace of God that brings salvation to all men teaches us to deny, say no, to ungodliness and worldly lust, and live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. And if you've got the real thing, you'll be able to do it. I can tell you now, you won't be satisfied. You're not satisfied to the level you did it. But if you can do it once, you can do it again. And here's one more, Romans 8:16. The Spirit itself, we'd say himself. Spirit himself. We're not talking about a feeling here like hot oil on the head running down on the body, you know. We're not talking about a feeling. If the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit, that's your real essential person, that we are the children of God. That means you know. You have confidence you're a child of God. You can approach God as a child of God instead of as an enemy or foe. Now those are some tips about this. Now I want to look initially at this text that I read. I want to look at I want to read verses 13 and 14 also. Romans 5, 13 and 14. Until the law, sin was in the world. But sin is not imputed where there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned, after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who, Adam, was a figure of him, Jesus, to come. Adam's sin impacted the entire creation, both the cosmos and the globe of earth, the environment of the earth, and all personal and impersonal creation. It impacted. We are talking about one single sin. Not talking about a life of sin. We're not talking about the sin of the entire race. One single sin. You want to know how serious sin is? And it was eating a piece of fruit. Let's make this plain. It wasn't murder. It wasn't Cain's sin that brought this on. Huh? It wasn't the people building the Tower of Babel that brought this on. This is Adam's sin. Impacted the entire creation. God imposed mortality on the entire cosmos, from the farthest galaxy to the sun, moon, and stars that you can see, and the entire globe, and all animal life, and all vegetable life. He imposed death upon it. Now, if you want to vaunt free will, how are you going to cram it into that? Is there somebody willing to postulate that human race wanted to die? They had no choice in the matter. Showing you how serious sin is. I'm showing you why God's starting over. The death sentence passed upon all men, and when it was passed, there were only 2 humans present. Am I right? Sentence of